Have you ever thought about taking a sabbatical, a break from your usual responsibilities, situation and environment? Well, when we think about sabbaticals, they're usually related to taking time away from work. But what if the thing you were taking a break from was your spouse? What if for your health and happiness, what you needed was a marriage sabbatical, some time away to reflect and be with yourself, but being pretty sure that you would return to your partner eventually? It takes a whole lot to keep a marriage going, and what if the best thing to continue is to take a break? Well, I'm about to get into it with our resident psychologist, but I would love to hear from you. Have you ever considered or experienced a marriage sabbatical? Christine Bagley-Jones is our resident psychologist, joins me fortnightly for a little chat that we call Head and Heart. Christine, welcome back.
Hello, Tegan.
I never want to take a break from you. Let me just say
Me
that.
neither. I'm here for the long haul.
I don't know if it's just in the air at the moment or if there's genuinely an increase, but I'm definitely seeing stories of people being like, I took a break from my marriage and here's what happened next. Is it on the increase?
I think taking a break from marriages have existed for a very long time, but it's been framed differently. The term sabbatical seems fairly fresh, but, you've heard people say we're having a trial separation, but the focus with a trial separation is more around we're going to see if we actually want to just split, whereas the sabbatical idea is around we don't really want to split. We want to see if we can breathe new life into this, and we can't do it in the melting pot of our day-to-day grind. So by having some time apart, we might be able to figure out the pieces to the puzzle that need resolving.
Are people asking you about this in your practice?
People are talking about being unhappy in their relationship, and during the course of therapy, we try to be creative around how we might problem solve, and it does come up. Rather than pulling the pin, we can do this in other ways first. Let's just discover exactly why the relationship's ailing, because it could be resolvable.
So what goes into that conversation, that initial chat that you're having with your client when you're discussing this? What kind of emotions come up for people?
It's often either they present because they're really unhappy in life and they've identified that their relationship's a key factor, or they come with some other condition like depression or anxiety, addiction issues, or some other problem that they present with. But as we talk, we reveal that their marriage is it's more than lackluster. It's actually burdensome in some ways. And then we start talking about how to problem solve. And of course, the first step is your spouse interested in discussing it and resolving it while you're still under the one roof, and let's try and do what we can there. But if there's not a lot of wriggle room there, rather than thinking, do we need to start thinking of divorce, we could actually just think about repair, but you can't repair if you can't figure out A, what the problem is, and B, that both parties are roughly equally committed to making changes.
What can you do separately that you can't do together under the same roof?
Get perspective, rediscover who you are outside of the context of the relationship and the home and all of the responsibilities that go with it. Women especially come to me saying, I don't know who I am anymore. I feel really lost. I'm not just blaming my spouse. I'm actually just not feeling like I understand what I'm supposed to be doing. And it can be for lots of reasons also, Tegan. It's not just the relationship. It's their time in life. They could be going through hormonal changes if it's a female. It could be just transitions regarding your parenting or vocational roles. And so that together with a disconnect in your relationship can often inspire the idea of, I'm discontent. This is something I need to explore. And by being outside of the relationship, I can understand the optics will be better. I can go, okay, this is the bit where I'm just exhausted by work. This is the bit where I'm neglecting self-care. And in amongst it, this is where my relationship's ailing. And perhaps even with that time away, you can start to ask yourself, what would a healthier version of this relationship look like?
I'm feeling like when I've seen people talking about this, the sorts of stories that I've seen have been women, mostly women probably in their 50s and 60s. Maybe their kids have grown. Is that just the stories that I'm seeing, or is there something about that particular group that is looking for something different than what they've had in their relationship up till that point?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Tegan. I'm seeing a little bit of an influx around that demographic, and I can only assume it's because we're talking more about it. It's more available in terms of educating women that, there's more options. Historically, we were fixed in terms of what a marriage looked like, whereas now people are thinking outside the square, and there's lots of different versions around how people do marriage. Women are thankfully more likely to be financially independent, so that creates more options. And I guess there's just a general understanding that humans are wanting more out of life, and that's occurring, I guess, and being reflected in our relationships. We're like, if we're not happy, we don't have to keep enduring it. We can find other ways without necessarily just pulling the pin either.
You're listening to Life Matters here on ABC Radio National. I'm Tegan Taylor here with resident psychologist Christine Bagley-Jones for Head and Heart. We're talking about the concept of a marriage sabbatical. I don't know if it's something you've seen or heard of, but it's the idea of a break away from your partner with the intention of getting back together, probably. Jan says, my partner is in hospital at the moment and I'm enjoying the break and he's getting good care. I guess, Christine, sometimes these breaks happen against our will. It's not an intentional thing in Jan's case here.
Yes, and yet Jan's saying, hey, unexpectedly, I'm enjoying the break. So then that would make me think there might be quite a lot of load on Jan in terms of what she's doing domestically and at home. So the first feeling she's getting, I'm sure she's concerned for the well-being of her spouse and perhaps even missing him, but she's also feeling some relief. So that's a really good indicator that there might need to be some adjustments, especially because you don't want that building resentment that I'm carrying more of the load. And over time, that can be the reason why the relationship reaches its demise, because we just get fed up.
I'm interested to go, okay, let's say you've had this thought, you've listened to Life Matters, you're inspired. Don't blame us if it goes sideways. How do you broach this with your partner without completely freaking them out?
And that's the tricky bit, because it's naive to think that everyone's going to already be on the same page. So when you bring it up, you want to make sure the timing's right. You don't do it just before bed. You don't do it when you're both in a hurry to leave the house. You almost schedule it, maybe organise an opportunity to have a cup of tea on the deck or go out and get a coffee, and then maybe start with some inquiry. Ask them, how are you finding our relationship? How are you finding life right now? Maybe you might like to share what you've observed. You seem very detached, or we haven't spent a lot of time, just the two of us. Invite them to explore their inner landscape regarding the relationship, because they might not have really seen it in the same way you have. And then hopefully you've massaged the conversation enough that you could then say, well, can I share a little bit about how I'm feeling? And then very gently, very respectfully start to reveal what's going on for you. But bear in mind, it could feel really hurtful to the person that you're sharing your life with when they hear you're discontent, or you feel things are unfair, or you feel empty, or there's something missing. But also couch it in a way that lets them know that there's hope, that you're curious about what you can do to breathe new life into this. And then maybe at some point, that conversation or another one, you could talk about the idea of ventilating the relationship in terms of a sabbatical.
Ventilating the relationship. So what I'm hearing you say there is like, it's not, I've given up hope on this relationship. It's, we got to try something different.
Yeah, and I think a lot of relationships already do that in a Band-Aid kind of way, in that, the girls' weekends, the yoga retreats, the visiting extended family interstate, the, work trips, all of these things, often one spouse at least is looking forward to the opportunity to have a break from their partner, but they haven't called it or identified it as such. And the problem with that is, well, denial will never lead to change. It just means it'll be a slow erosion, and eventually those reasons to get that break will maybe not be there. And then you're just stuck with this void of a relationship that could have been repaired with some more communication.
It's so interesting you say that. There's actually a couple of texts here that speak to that directly. One person says partners of FIFO workers get to do this all the time, and the marriage can limp along with that dual persona situation for years past their use-by date. So that's the negative side of what you're saying. But another says, my partner and I have been together for 18 years and we have had many sabbaticals. Our relationship would not have lasted without these. I have worked away for extended periods of time where I could not return home on a weekly basis. We also have had extended holidays away from each other. We both value our independence and trust each other. So what is that second person doing right? And the FIFO example perhaps not nailing, making the most of that time apart?
Yes, and that's a really good point, because while you're apart, it isn't just about, relaxing and binge watching Netflix, and even though that does sound lovely, it can definitely have part of that. But it is about being intentional. What do I want to get from this break apart? While we're apart, I want to connect with myself and invigorate who I am as an individual, separate from the banner of my relationship and my family and all of the other hats that I'm wearing. So communication's key. So for the FIFO couple, because it's work that's implemented the time away, they probably haven't realised that they're not making the most of rejuvenating themselves and being connected with their individuality and getting excited about that reconnection each time. It's just become a pattern of life. And the other couple have intentionally infused it into their world. They've made a commitment that their marriage is going to include independence and growth on a personal level that we can then safely bring back to the marriage. I've gone away on this holiday and I've learned all these new things. Can I share it? Yes, I'm so excited because I've been reading A, B, and C. So it's around the attitude you take regarding the separation and what you want to get intentionally out of it.
What about describing what you're doing to the other people in your life? So let's say you and your partner have come to an agreement, this is a great thing for us. How do you talk about it to your kids, whatever age they are, to your parents? How do you get people on board with what you're trying to do?
And, that's a really tricky part of the whole equation, which often delays it happening because it's just put in the too hard basket. We're not separating. We're not completely together. The problem is, how do you define it where it's a little bit sort of left off centre? With regard to the children, I still maintain that we have a responsibility to try to navigate them safely into adulthood without too many unavoidable glitches. So you'd manage this one with hypersensitivity. You would explain, hey, this isn't a divorce. This is the opposite. This is us trying to figure out a way how we can make this work better. Usually kids have seen that there's problems. They're not silly. They can see mum and dad don't seem very happy. They don't go for walks along the beach when we're on holidays. Like there's a few telling signs that they've observed. So they could feel a bit of relief if they think that the parents are trying, but also let the children ask questions and ensure that they still feel loved, that they are not left in the dark because they'll fill in the pieces themselves, and that's where anxiety lives. In terms of other family members, I'm a bit of a believer that once we're adults, it's on a need-to-know basis. So choose carefully your audience. Don't just tell all and sundry, but think to yourself, who needs to know and who will respect our decision without weighing in, because people will have their own agendas. A lot of people don't like the idea that a couple are separating because they like the way they socialise and interact either with the family or with friends, and that'll be interrupted. Sometimes people don't like it because it prompts them to explore their own relationships and maybe the need for repair there, and that's uncomfortable. And if they haven't invited it, it's awkward, and they don't necessarily want to see that part. And also some people just have very strong values and views around marriage and see it as the sanctity of a long-term commitment, and they might not share the view that it shouldn't be an endurance race, it should be something that's uplifting and value-adding. So I guess you need to be clear about how you want to tell people, making sure you're on the same page wherever possible so that the press release is kind of consistent and be robust to understand that those that don't agree, you don't need to try to justify. You just continue on your path because it's well thought out.
Christine, thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Christine Bagley-Jones is our resident psychologist who joins me fortnightly for Head and Heart. Thank you for your texts too. Lara says, I am desperate for that sabbatical. I'm in that demographic and I'm continuously everyone else's assistant and life facilitator, and I'm tired of it.
Find more great ABC RN stories that take you beyond the headlines on the ABC Listen app.